There you go. Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm well. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
hmm Yeah. So I am in the process of really starting my coaching business. And I came to you because I needed help getting photos for my website, but I didn't want them to be like the kind of photos you see where people feel stiff in their pictures where they're trying to be something for the picture. I really wanted it to feel like me. And I'd gotten to see some of your work and we're friends in real life. So I felt really trusting of your ability to bring that out, that ease in photos to tell the story I wanted for my site and for my clients. Mhm.
Awesome. So let's go a little bit deeper into this. Like you said, you're in the process of becoming a coach. What drew you to that? What kind of coaching do you do, and who do you enjoy working with?
Mm, so I got into coaching largely by following my curiosities. There were a series of small things that when I followed one curiosity to another, it led me into a year-long coaching program where I got the training to really do full on embodiment coaching. A lot of coaches will help you do strategic work for your business. And I'm so much more about supporting you and coming into the answers that you already have and are just having trouble accessing. So I predominantly work with super stressed out people in their careers. These are people who are often very passionate about the work they do, but are just feeling stressed out. Like they've got that perfect polished presentation to the outside world, but inside they feel frantic and like cringing and tight and like they're constantly worried about the next step they're going to take. And I get to coach them into greater ease so that their interior experience is feels more like it's aligned to their exterior world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So what are some things that you do? So you said when your clients come in, they are very stressed out, they're frantic, something about it is not working. So what's your approach? What kind of approaches do you use?
Mhm. Well, it's tailored to every single person, so there's not a formula that comes into play, but really it's about supporting them as they learn what it feels like to be relaxed in their body and for that to be something they can hold for 5 minutes. Some people can only hold it for 5 minutes and have that feel okay, and then they need to return to their norm, which is stress. But increasingly, expanding that time where they get to be in a more relaxed space and learning to hold that. And so that might be through things like breath work or through allowing for emotional releases and clearing those things out. It really just depends on the person. But by the end of their time working with me, what they have is this ability to experience calm and ease through their day. And in the moments where they can feel themselves gearing up for that stress, they can give themselves what they need to come back into a more relaxed, present state and know that that stress isn't required for them to be sharp and effective in their job.
Hmm. So what happens when, like, why is it important for your clients to be in this embodied and relaxed state? Like, what's the advantage that they have in even doing their jobs?
Well, the alternative is burnout. You can care about something so much, but if you're in this constant stress state, it wears on your body. What you're in is that fight or flight mode. Your sympathetic nervous system is active this whole time. And it's okay to be there from time to time, but to live there in your constant state leads to burnout. You're just, everything in your body just becomes frayed and you eventually have to stop. And are you going to consciously do that by relaxing your body, or are you going to run yourself ragged and crash and burn? Um,
Right.
that's often those are often the long-term alternatives that you're looking at. And for the people I work with, they're recognizing that they need support in addressing their burnout and their stress so that they continue doing the things that they love. And for some of them, that means that they're more effective in the career that they have, that they already love. And for others, that means recognizing that actually it wasn't really working for them. And so then it gets easier for them to clarify what they want and then move toward that.
Hmm. So, how do your clients find you right now? And then what's your plan for the future in terms of growing your business as a coach?
Yeah, it's largely through word of mouth right now. I know many people enjoy being on social media, but I'm just not one of them. I feel connection through community. And so that's largely how I find my clients and how they feel drawn to me. It's through somebody else telling them about their experience with me. And my long-term vision for the business is to be able to start doing more teaching while continuing to coach. So if somebody doesn't necessarily know that they want the one-on-one experience, they can find some of my teachings and see how they jive with it. And maybe that's all they need. And maybe they decide they want one-on-one coaching, and either would be okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
makes sense. So you said that you wanted photos that were not, just the norm that you see out there. So tell me a little bit more about that. Why was it A, so important for you to have photos in this plan that you have for your business, and B, why was it important to have something that's a little bit different than the norm?
Typically, if someone pulls out a camera, I immediately go stiff. And I immediately start thinking about how I'm supposed to be presenting, or am I smiling too big? Am I not smiling enough? Am I slouching too much? Oh God, did that like curry stain on my shirt? Is that going to be in the photo? Do I need to cover it up with my hand? I suddenly get very heady. Um, and that's the exact opposite of what my clients experience in our sessions. And the whole point is actually to pull them out of their head and into their body so they can be more
Mhm.
present. And I needed my experience in the session to be like that, needing to be more sincere and more present. And I've seen your work and I trusted that you were able to support me in that. But also I wanted them to be able to see the invitation, the invitation to work with me, and the invitation to also just feel more spacious in their lives, feel like there's more space to breathe, more room for them to take care of themselves. And yeah, in some ways, indulging in some of the social media-esque self-care practices of going to spas and doing those things, but also the perfectly ordinary ways of just taking a moment and taking a sip of water, or sitting for a moment and just breathing. um, and then getting to have that visual impression of what that can be that would
Mm.
align with the actual experience they would have in working with me, if that makes sense. I'm a
Yeah,
little
yeah. So it
succinct.
sounds basically like you wanted to show in your photos, or you want to show in your photos, like kind of model the experience that you're
Mhm.
gonna give to your
Yeah.
clients. They can see that, and so it made sense that you didn't want photos that looked stiff because you didn't want your clients to feel like
Mhm.
that's what I'm gonna get. No, you want your clients, potential clients, to see what they're gonna get and who they're gonna
Yes.
get when they're working with you. Cool.
Yeah. But
So uh, let's go a little bit into the process. So as we started talking about the photo shoot, we did a little bit of a we I walked you through my process where we had some conversations, we created a mood board, we planned the shoot on a call, and I think in our case we did it over coffee. But
mhm.
what was that process like for you before the actual photo shoot?
Yeah, so I got to go to your free workshop, where highly recommend, but where I got to create a mood board. And the prompt for you was really just kind of anything that was inspiring to me. And it was largely just people who were so joyful and just in like full true laughter. And not like the perfect pretty smiles, but like they're gorgeous, beaming, like delighted smiles. Um, and it just brought that clarity in terms of the genuineness I wanted in the photos. And not all of them are featuring me beaming brightly, but there's that genuine component to each one that I really appreciated. So it started with that workshop, and then we got to talk. And as we were talking, it was helpful because it was a lot of the questions that you're asking me now were similar things you were asking me then. And you were taking notes because I didn't necessarily know everything I wanted to come through, but you were talking to me about my business and about what I wanted, what clients experience, and how the story I wanted them to understand. And so by you taking those notes, we were able to have a conversation and gain clarity around what we wanted from that experience for both of us. And through that note taking and that review, because you also sent me the notes, and it was helpful because I hadn't had that kind of conversation before necessarily. And I'm also in the process of building my website, and you gave me the invitation to first do the photo shoot and get to embody everything that I want to create for my clients and the story I want to tell on a website, and then use those photos then as the inspiration for how I present on that website and the flow of that site and how I build out copy for it. Um, and that just felt better for me because I was getting too in my head about what I was supposed to say and how it was supposed to flow. And okay, what picture then will match the thing? It was starting to feel like tight and rigid and a little stressful. And what I appreciated about this was it almost felt like the experience I wanted my clients to have, which is that sigh of relief of being like, okay, cool. I'm feeling supported in this. I'm feeling seen in this. And ultimately, what Raj is asking me to do is just to show up, and to show up with a level of consideration for what I want. Um, and that's made it a lot easier in the process when we were talking about specific kinds of photos we wanted to take or the story we wanted to tell. At the core of it, I realized I wanted it to feel like an invitation. And you really helped ease out the different emotional experiences clients might go through in my sessions, but also that spaciousness and that invitation, that warmth, I think came through so beautifully. And if you get to see the photos Raj took of me, that is how you would see me in real life, but that's typically not how you would see me in a picture. Your skill as a photographer and your ability to
Oh,
like help me feel at ease, rather than feeling like I'm supposed to be performing.
right. And it sounds like that. I love this idea, the way you phrase it. It's like that the process is just what is demanding of you is just that you show up. I
Yeah.
love the way you put that. That's not the way I've put it so far, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well,
So then, yeah, you
yeah,
go ahead.
there's that genuineness that you asked and expected, and you leave it,
Yeah,
or you've left it to me at least to decide what that is. And in the examples you've shown me of other shoots you've done, it seems like that's also what you've asked of other folks. And everybody has a different way of interpreting
yeah,
that. And they have a different way of expressing themselves, but it all felt genuine.
yeah.
And that's really what I wanted.
That's wonderful to hear because that is basically the core value that I want to bring to my shoots and to photography in general,
Hmm.
like especially branding photography. I think we can be more genuine and still have a good brand at the same time. There's
Yeah.
no need to kind of do the same
Well,
thing that everyone else is doing.
well, by being more yourself, yeah, there are probably some people you're going to push away, but as a result, you're also going to more strongly attract people who are going to want to work with you anyway
Yeah,
because you're being more clear about who you are.
totally. I love
Yeah.
that. So let's talk about the day and the experience of the photo shoot itself. As you said that you were, your normal experience with photos is to get really stiff. And so as the day of the photo shoot approached, like, were there any concerns coming up for you? Like, were you worried about the shoot? And then how did it go? Like, from before, like, collecting outfits and all of that to like actually doing the shoot.
Yeah, I yeah, I would say I was pretty like frazzled about the photo shoot because um it felt it felt like this was the thing that everything else about my public presentation hinged upon. I'm very good at making things very large in my head. Um, that is my perfectionism at play, and sometimes it's about pulling that back. Um, yeah, there were points where I felt really frazzled, and it was through the conversations with you that I would feel more comfortable and at ease again, and I'd be able to like right size the experience once more and be like, okay, actually, I'm very clear on what I want here. It's just a matter of finding the clothes that feel good for me. For me, it was about finding clothing that felt good to wear, not that was necessarily going to be the best thing to for the photo shoot. Um,
Mm,
and I got to show you clothing, but ultimately the things I chose were largely things that I felt good in.
yeah.
Um, and wear on kind of like an everyday thing or for some special occasions. Um, and then you connected me with a makeup artist. And at first I was like, I don't know. Like I can do my own makeup. But actually I'm really glad I did that because she gave me this extra element of feeling supported and of listening to me and supporting me in creating that vision. And so by the time we started the photo shoot, like I felt comfortable because I was wearing clothes that felt good, but that I felt good in. And it felt like we were clear on what it was that I wanted to create. And then I had this wonderful makeup artist who who helped, I think, me talk out some of my initial nerves before the photo shoot
Mm,
started. And we started with dance. We started with me dancing, which also helped get some of those nerves out.
mm.
Um, I'd asked you to put on some music, and you just and when I started to dance, I think you had a different vision for how the photo shoot was going to start, but you went with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those were
Um,
some of my favorite photos because you just look so
yeah.
natural and relaxed in those. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah. And I think getting to start with something like that, starting with something that involved more movement and action on my part, it just felt good. It felt like that was the chance for me to settle into my body and once more just stay out of my head for what it was supposed to be and just trust that you were going to capture what was there and that I was expressing the things that needed to come through for my site and for my
Mm,
story for my clients. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm really glad we started with dancing.
All right. So then what happened after the dancing? Like how did the rest of the shoot go for you?
Um, Everything else felt so easy at that point.
Mm,
Um, in coaching, you can kind of only take clients as deep as you yourself are willing to go. So
mm,
there were moments where you were asking me about client experiences and about what something would feel like. And when I was thinking about it, I think we had some photos that came out a little more like stiff, but then I would get into like the actual feeling of it, like extreme joy or extreme anger. Sometimes when you start digging, you'll find a lot of anger or a lot of sadness. And because I've been willing and open to going deep in those things in my own work for myself, it was easy to pull them up for the photo shoot and to truly express them as as appropriate in that context. and then and then sort of snap out of it. Like there was a point where we've talked about the fact that sometimes there's anger work in my coaching where clients get to scream into a pillow or punch a pillow or have an all out tantrum if they need to. It just depends on what's there for them. There was this point where this was, I think, honestly, perhaps the most fun I had during the photo shoot, which was when I actually just got to have a tantrum, like have an all out tantrum on the floor, flailing and just getting all of this anger out. And it felt so good and it felt so like real. And then I saw the photos and I was like, fantastic. And it's all real. Um, it felt great. And there's some photos afterwards where I'm just like sitting up against a wall, just being like, all right, that happened.
which I imagine is your clients' reactions too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing how for women in particular, when we're taught that anger is something we're not supposed to express, or
Mm,
there are good ways to express it, often when they start doing anger work with me, they'll have trouble yelling. And then suddenly they are screaming at the top of their lungs in a pillow once they really let go.
mm,
Um, and getting to do that kind of work was really fun. And there was a
mm.
point where you took one photo, or I think you took a series of them, where I was still in the anger work and expressing that, but it was a point where I was gripping the pillow and looking over it. And and I was like, I genuinely felt that anger. I was like, you can see it. And I had this moment where I thought of my little brother and I was like, oh God, that's the look he grew up with. And when I got to show the pictures to my mom, she said something very similar.
I want to hear
And
that. What did she say?
um, so when I saw the photos, I was thinking of my little brother, specifically with the ones where I'm glaring over the pillow. And when my mom saw the same pictures, she said, "Oh yeah, I know that look." But like Brian, my little brother, he particularly knew that look.
That's great. I always love hearing moms' reactions to photos of my clients because they always like, that's to me the sign if I've like really captured them or not.
Oh yeah, in general, she like really loves the photos. That the ones in particular where I am just outright angry and looking at the camera, those were the ones where I think she was having flashbacks to me being like a teenager. Shared them with my little brother yet, but I need to.
Yeah, I want to hear those reactions too. So, so
Oh,
uh, tell me a little bit more about why this anger work is so important. I mean, you mentioned that women are not always allowed to express anger in their acceptable ways, and this that builds up.
yeah.
Like, what happens with your clients when? Why is it so important for your clients to be able to go through that process?
Um, there there's like a catchy little phrase that says your issues are in your tissues. And the idea behind that is all of the emotions that we stuff down end up staying in our bodies and show up with different issues. It might be like really tight shoulders, or it might be some people believe it gets to be as severe as causing diseases in people's bodies. There are different. You're able to take what works for you and leave the rest there, but by getting the anger out, it's sometimes anger often if it sits, it can become resentment. And so there can be resentments about the things that they really love doing, but they started doing them for the wrong reasons. Um, and by getting that out, it's like you have this space to breathe again. And it's like you've got space for yourself once more. It's like you got to let all of that garbage go and like clean house emotionally. And it can feel intense and it can feel really good and really cathartic. And once you get to do that, when you have that space, it's as though the clarity comes back for you on why
Mm,
you're doing things and what your yeses are in life and what your nos are in life. And you recognize that when you say yes to the wrong things or you say no to the right things, you start to recognize that what you just released is what you're actually inviting back in if you
mm,
continue on that path. Um, so it's both a release and a lesson for them in terms of what they're now letting go of and what they could invite back in if they don't really respect their own boundaries and begin to
mm.
define them for themselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
thank
anger
you.
work.
Yeah, I am so excited that you could go there and you really went into that anger because I mean, from a selfish motive, I now have these beautiful photos of anger,
Yeah.
which like even in photography is not considered an acceptable emotion, right? Like
Mhm.
how many portraits do you see of like especially women, but anybody getting angry? And it's
Yeah,
like it's almost a
typically
taboo. It's like
men who are
you don't do
athletes.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're all taught that taught that danger is a dangerous thing to do. Anger is a dangerous thing. Anger is bad. You don't get angry, or if you get angry, you don't express it, or if you express it, then you have to do it in these specific ways, and blah 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 blah. Um, and I would say there are healthy ways to release anger, and there are unhealthy ways to release anger. If you are not in a boxing class or a boxing professional, punching someone probably not a good idea. um, or but punching a pillow, there's no harm there. You're not directing that anger at someone. You are releasing it for yourself. Um, and those are very different things. And getting to recognize that your anger is something that gets to be expressed is so powerful. I mean, I grew up with a lot of the stories about what a good girl is supposed to be, and I bought into many of them. And as a result, I used to uh, there's the stereotype that redheads have a short fuse. And I always took such pride in the fact that no, I don't have any fuse. I don't have any fuse. There's no fuse. There's no anger to go off in me, which just means that I was stuffing it down and stuffing it down and stuffing it down. And I would be resentful of friends who got to do things that I didn't, or I would be resentful of my partner who asked something of me and I said yes when I really should have said no. I just felt these resentments building. And and I also carried the story that anger was bad, or that I was bad when I expressed it.
Mm,
And it took quite a bit of support for me to get to the point where I could scream into a pillow and not feel like somebody should lock me away, or to have like a tantrum almost like a toddler in a room by myself where I am all by myself, and just to get to punch and kick on the bed. Getting to let those things go is what allowed me to then be able to see my friend doing the thing that I thought was really cool, and recognizing that, okay, yeah, I'd actually like to do something like that. And how cool is it that she's doing that and showing me that this is possible? Or when my partner asks me for something and it's a no for me, it's like, no, sweetheart, I can't because of X, Y, or Z. Like, I don't have the space or the capacity. By doing the anger work, it's like I gained this ability to actually listen to what it is that I need,
Mhm.
um, and to be able to express it to other people. It's been a really important linchpin moment, I think, in a lot of my personal work that then let me go deeper into things like joy and excitement and dreaming.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Mhm.
Well, how cool it is that now you get to bring that to your clients and
Yeah.
they get to have somebody who can, support them and not shame their anger and just kind of invite it in the room.
Yeah. And I find that many times we teach what we ourselves need, and that's very true here. Like,
Mhm.
and it's because I have needed these things that I can more easily relate to people and where they are, even if their stories are very different, their experiences are different. I can better relate. But then there's also this understanding of where they are and also what's possible for them, and really supporting them as they open up to those possibilities that they want to create for themselves. It just feels so good to be in those sessions and
Mhm.
have somebody, even a few, after like 4 or 5 sessions, go from being this very tense person to being able to tell me that they had a whole week of work where things felt easy.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I had that. I had that with a client very recently, where after just a month of work with me, where we were meeting once a week, at the 5th session, she said, "Last week was so easy, and I think it's because of these things that I've been doing for myself." It's not because of me. It's because of what they've been doing and how they've shown up. I'm
Yeah.
simply there as a support for them.
Yeah.
And I love getting to do that. I love it.
Amazing. I am really excited to see how you have all these beautiful photos of your, anger and throwing tantrums and all of that, and how you talk about this because you clearly have so much to say about that, and it's really important for your work. So I'm excited to see how that
Hmm.
goes. So coming to the photos back again, so
Yeah.
I would love to hear how you felt when you saw the photos for the first time, and now that you have been with them for about a week, like how does it feel now?
Um, Typically, my reaction when I see a photo of myself, not in this context, but kind of every other, is, oh God. It's like, I don't know about that. Or it's like, it doesn't feel like it mirrors how I felt in that moment. Um, and so often I'll need like weeks or months before I can see the photo and be like, yeah, okay, I like that, okay, I guess. Um, but when we got to do the session where you shared the photos with me, I didn't have that reaction. There wasn't like this moment. It was just like, oh, oh, like there was this like genuine delight in what I was seeing, because it actually felt like I was seeing me. It felt like it actually mirrored what I was feeling in those moments. And that was really cool. Yeah, I, it, it felt like everything we had talked about had actually come to fruition. And I
Mm,
trusted your skill, but I don't know that I necessarily trusted myself in all of that, in terms of like what the outcomes were going to be. Um, yeah, I was really thrilled with it. I felt like I was seeing me at ease, or in anger. Anger is less ease, but I felt like I was genuinely seeing what was there that
right. Any particularly favorite photos that stood out for you?
day. I loved the pictures of me dancing in the beginning. because there was just that motion and energy to it. And I really enjoyed that. The anger, um, the ones where I've got my face buried in the pillow and I'm just looking up. Like that is so real. And a part of myself that I would never have wanted to share with the world 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a part that I would have been embarrassed for anybody to know was there. And yet to be able to see her and be like, yeah, that's a part of me. That's a really powerful part of me. Cool. That was beautiful to be able to see her. That part of me. I keep distancing myself, but like really she's me. I love the tantrum pictures on the floor where I am just picking out. Um, there was a moment in the photo shoot. There was a wonderful person named Sven who was there assisting with the photo shoot. And there were points where Raj would ask Sven to do something, and I would do it instead because I was like, well, I'm closer, I'll just do it. And Sven challenged me at one point, observing that I was not good at receiving help.
Mm.
That maybe this was an opportunity for me to practice receiving like my clients get to receive from me. I was like, okay. So there's some pictures of me kind of like processing like sitting back on the couch with my arms crossed. I'm looking at Sven and I'm sort of like processing this, being like, God damn it, she's right. Yes, there are always opportunities for growth. And for me, one of them is in continuing to practice receiving help from others. And so there are moments that came through that I couldn't have planned. There's no way I
Mm.
could have done an outline of like sketches for what anger was going to look like for me.
Yeah.
For that moment with her and sort of be processing. Some clients have those reactions too sometimes where I will observe things and share with them. And they have that moment of like, oh shit. And it might not be a literal translation of arms back, like
Yeah.
resentment, but there's that moment of like them sort of like processing and being like, oh God, yeah, that's there. Okay. And then they open back up and they're like, so how do I deal with this?
Yeah. The
We'll work
moment of
together.
recognition. Well, that
Yes.
sounds like
Yeah.
another great story to talk about in your branding when you post about this stuff. Cool. So
Mm-hmm.
last and obligatory question. Imagine you were talking to a friend or a colleague about this experience and they didn't know anything about me. Would you recommend this experience to them? And then how, what would you tell them about it?
So there is an undeniable 10 out of 10, actually probably like 1,000 out of 10 in terms of my recommendation for the experience. I'm not generally hyperbolic, so that 1,000 out of 10, very sincere. Um, I'm sometimes hyperbolic. Maybe I was a little hyperbolic, but still true. Um, Absolutely, I would recommend the experience, and I recommend it for a few reasons. I really love your process. Um, I think for a lot of photographers, well, I can't speak for a lot of photographers. My worry was that in working with a photographer, we would have a quick conversation. We'd capture those awkward photos of me feeling stiff and uncomfortable, and then I would be deeply unsatisfied. And I would repeat that process with a couple of photographers, waste my time, waste my money. That was my worry. Um, and in your process, there's the first, you have steps, there are clear steps. There's like the vision board, which helped me gain clarity in terms of the core that I wanted in those experiences. It was not literal translations of the photos, but the feelings definitely came into play. Then we talked about what was there, and we talked about then what it was like to work with me and what kind of business I have and what it is that I wanted from these photos and from this experience with you. We had that conversation. And from that, we then had more explicit conversations about the structure of the photo shoot, where things needed to be, what I wanted the look and feel to be. Um, and then by the time we got to the session, it didn't feel like I had to monitor you and be like, Raj, you have to remember to get that one photo. We'd already built the trust and connection in terms of what we wanted the outcomes to be and the story to be. And I just got to be there. I, you were so good at prompting me and asking questions and putting on music when I needed to dance or asking me a question and capturing me as I was sharing whatever it was related to that. Because you're giving me these beautiful prompts about anger or about delight or about what it's like for me to work with a client. And the moments that come through where you just see that genuineness, it's because you were prompting me and I was reflecting on it. I was feeling it. Um, you were just so good at creating a sense of ease through the whole thing. In the in-betweens, I was definitely getting like more frazzled and like worried. And then I would talk to you again and be like, okay, I'm good. Um, so it felt like you were good for like the emotional support as well as the technical support in terms of what you were
Hmm.
delivering for the photography experience. I would absolutely recommend it. Um,
Thank you.
yeah.
And before we close, where can people find more about you and your coaching work?
Mm, yes. So, as I said before, social media is not something that really jives with me, and that's totally fine if it works for them. But you can find me on my website, RebeccaSiler.com, and that's where people can find my work, can find opportunities to work with me, or once I have some courses up, they'll be able to find those courses too to see what connects for them.
All
Yeah,
right. Thank
that's
you
where
so
I'll
much
be.
for your time. I am going to stop the recording now.
Okay.